Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much. Today, we have Ron Hickland, the owner and CEO of Creating the Difference. We're so happy to have you on today.
Yes.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, we're so happy to sit down and talk to you, especially with everything going on in the world right now. It's really crazy. And you have a lot of cool things that you're doing in the bowling industry that's helping, everyone. So we're excited to dive deep in that and, figure out how you got to where you are right now, because it's really interesting.
Awesome. Yeah, it's definitely a crazy time in the world right now, and bowling definitely needs something positive. So we wanted to be able to do something positive for the sport of bowling, and we're doing that. So.
Yeah. Especially, I think what was crazy with like COVID and everything, that I feel like bowling was just getting to where it needed to be. We were finally, especially with the women's tour and the men's tour with Bolero taking over, we were just getting to where we were about to explode. So it's kind of sad with everything that now we're kind of like back to square one again. So it's cool to see someone like yourself still pushing through and getting things done, even when, we're all kind of just sitting at home waiting to find out what's going on.
Yeah, definitely exciting. To give some positivity to the world right now.
Yeah, I mean, it is pretty crazy. Like for us, it's always been about kind of adapting to the situation. So we wanted to find a way to do that with our products that we have. That was good when everything was going well and everybody's bowling. But as soon as the bowling stopped, you're not really cleaning your bowling ball very often anymore. You know what I mean? So we decided we could pivot around that, though. We decided to do some masks. We have some face masks, which have been very, very well received. And then obviously cleaning, we're good at cleaning bowling balls. So we're like, well, maybe we can do other things, clean other surfaces. So we a cleaner, an alcohol-based cleaner as well. It's pretty awesome what we got going on right now.
But that is super exciting that you're still able to make new products that can still help people, even though what you're saying, even though people aren't able to bowl, that you're still able to make a huge impact with the cleaners still, and being able to pivot your business, which is super exciting and makes you well-rounded as well.
Yeah, so we were talking about, obviously, with everything going on in the world, we're talking about Black Lives Matter, and, kids that are in that movement can have role models and have people to look up to. And obviously, me and Laura were talking about it, when, everyone kind of considers themselves, some people want to be called Black and some people want to be, African-American, where would you fall into that?
I mean, personally, I think it's a choice of respect, right? Mm-hmm. So if people prefer to be called one or the other, then they should say that on the front side. I personally don't care. If you want to say that I'm Black, if you want to say that I'm African American, if you want to say that I'm brown, at the end of the day, I'm a human like everybody else. So yeah. I don't take offense or view that as an attack if you say Black versus African American versus brown, me personally. But it's not like that way for everybody, and to each their own there. You know what I mean?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, that's a really interesting point. I never thought about that. If someone has a really strong preference, it would be better if they were more upfront, about it. So that way people don't get into that gray area of, okay, I'm sorry, I didn't know kind of thing. So when it comes to that and Black, African American, whatever people want to be called, when they're young and have role models, we're kind of wondering who are the role models for you? Because, in the bowling industry, there's not a lot of Black or African Americans that have been at a high level in the industry, whether it's on the tech side or even bowling. So we're kind of wondering what got you into it? Who were those role models for you that got you to where you are today?
So I've been really fortunate. My role model's been my father. My father he's the one that got me into bowling. He's the one that's helped me get through the business portion side of bowling. And ultimately, to have him help me with the business and just go all from, being born all the way through to where I'm at today, it's been a huge influence for me. My dad was a teacher. Dad was a principal of a high school, and actually the high school I went to, actually, believe it or not. And to be able to kind of bounce ideas off him as I've gotten older, to be able to ask, questions, be able to have someone to call when you're crying and you're sad, you know what I mean? So it's been I've been very lucky to have him in my life, my whole life. And I believe that's a real big key to my success. is having both my parents, both mom and dad, both are heavily involved in the business to this day. But and my mom was the one when we were younger that was toting me and my brother around to all the little bowling tournaments while my dad was at a bowling tournament. And then as I got older, I was able to start bowling tournaments with my dad. So then I would just start going with my dad. And like now, even to this day, the USDC Nationals, and every time we get an opportunity to be together, we bowl together as well. So him for sure, but without question, without the fatherly role model figure that I've had my whole life, there's no chance that I would have got to. You look at some of the other people that have just ascended to high levels in sports or in entertainment. You know, those people are they can kind of give you a little bit of not necessarily guidance, but more of understanding of, well, this is what can be obtained.
Yeah.
So, you know, I look up to people that this is what's possible if you're willing to put in the effort or willing to put in the work, or in a lot of cases, you got to have some luck in there too.
Yeah, that's very true. Yeah. Well, did you have anybody in the bowling industry other than your father that was already at a high level, you know, whether it be a bowler or, you know, on the other side? Did you have anyone that was also inspirational?
Of course. I was always a big fan of George Branham because he was an African-American bowler. He looked like me. He bowled and he was winning. He was able to win. So I always thought that was really, really cool. You know, and then just growing up in general, there's a lot of just role models in bowling in general people that I thought were just really, really cool. I had an opportunity to meet Earl Anthony once. I just thought the guy was a really, really cool guy. And just, I think in general, there's not a lot of black bowlers that have ascended to that highest level.
Yeah.
You know, you look at like Gary Faulkner. That was really cool what he did. I think that was it was very important. It was very cool, and I think that deserved and reward that he got, you know, for him and what he did.
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot of opportunity in bowling for there to be more diversity and for there to be more inclusion in any sport.
Yeah. And why, I mean, I don't know, because I'm not on that side. Like, why do you think that it's, you know, there's not as many that get to that level? Do you think that there's some reason, or do you just think that it's just because of certain opportunities?
Cost of entry, I think. So let's talk about that for 2 seconds. So look at somebody like Jason Belmonte or somebody like EJ Tech, who I think are the pinnacle of the bowling world, you know, in terms of bowling ability. Both of them have grown up in bowling centers, right?
Yeah.
Both their parents owned bowling centers. Both their parents worked in bowling centers. So they were bowling when they, you know, from day one, they came out and they were ready to go bowl.
Yeah.
When you start looking at some of the other players, it's a lot of the same thing. A lot of these guys grew up in bowling. So, you know, from an African-American standpoint, that's a little bit tricky. There's not a whole lot of black bowling center owners in the country to start, right? So that's going to make it a little bit tougher. Then once you get past that, then it's okay, well, now you've got to have the kids that want to do those, right? So that's going to take it away too. You look at the sports that there are lots of African-American players involved in, and they're all throughout all sports. But I always find it kind of interesting. Basketball, there's a lot of African-Americans in there, but the point of entry to basketball, there's very low cost. It's a ball on a goal, and you can put a ball on a goal pretty much anywhere, right?
Yeah, anyone can walk down the street and just have
right. You know what I'm saying? So same kind of thing with football. Not the same thing with hockey, right?
Yeah.
Hockey's expensive.
Yeah.
And guess what? You don't see a lot of African Americans in hockey. You don't see a lot of African Americans in NASCAR either. Same thing. I don't know much about NASCAR, but I can imagine that it's not very cheap to be in NASCAR. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No.
So I think the opportunities, the barrier of entry is the cost, and the cost is what allows, you know, whoever to be able to get in. For me, because my dad was in bowling, I was able to go work in a bowling center at a very early age, like 13. So I was in the bowling center and I was hanging out in the bowling center and I worked in the pro shop. So I was able to bowl pretty much whenever I wanted for free. And that's how the whole thing gets going, in my opinion. I just thought of Anthony Simonson, same thing.
Oh,
you know, Anthony basically grew up in a bowling center.
Yeah.
So you look at these people, and I think people don't fully understand how good these players are, because they've done this their whole life, like day in, day out, over and over. And that's why I think that they're so successful. And that's why I think it's hard to get to that level of success unless you've had that same kind of, born into it, stuck with it, worked forever. And then when it's your time, you get to that spot.
Yeah, you have to be given the opportunity and then do the hard work. But if you're never given the opportunity to put in the hard work, yeah, that's totally understandable. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I never even thought about it that way too, because I just came into the bowling world like 2 years ago too. And so just that makes, wow, mind blown right now.
Yeah. Well, I always said to like people, and it's not a bad thing, everyone has opportunities in their own way, but I always say like even on the women's side, a lot of the women who are competitive every single year either own a pro shop, have a center that they have access to 24/7. They have just different opportunities that allow them to focus strictly on bowling, which is totally fine because everyone can make a way of getting to that point. Maybe not owning the center, but having income like Laura or I, where we're able to focus on bowling without worrying so much about a job, like a 9-to-5 job. So the women that are able to find that, without having a 9-to-5 job, or, like the women who are nurses or teachers who are stuck to a strict schedule, I feel like it's a lot easier to be successful in the bowling industry, whether you're black or white. It doesn't really matter. It just comes down to opportunities.
And that's why I didn't start bowling until back again since early 2018, because I started my own business. I no longer worked at the hospital or the nursing home. And now I have this flexibility that I can make time to practice. And then if I need to, I can work from anywhere. So it's definitely very fortunate. I wouldn't have been able to do that otherwise.
That's the key. Without having the ability to practice, and we're talking lots and lots and lots of practice to get to that, to get to this highest level, you're not going to be able to ascend to the cream of the crop type performance. So I think that's a lot of it, which is part of the reason why with what we do at Creating the Difference, it's all education focused, because there's a lot, that's the other side of it, right? Let's say you do have the physical talent, but you don't know how to apply any of it. So it's kind of a two-part equation there. And I believe that was one of the big reasons why we wanted to focus on getting this education center that we've got now, because we're going to be able to allow people to have access to it. That's the other component. The people there's a lot of training centers across the country, not a lot, but there's several, and they're expensive. They're expensive to go to. So we wanted to do it a little bit differently than that. We wanted to make it more affordable. We wanted to make it so that people have an opportunity to be able to come get training, get education, and leave that building a much better player at a cost that's reasonable. So that's been the whole plan from day one, honestly.
That's amazing. You actually just answered one of our questions, because we already have that your main focus was education and innovation. And so that's what we kind of want to talk about, the new training center. So since you just acquired the old EDI plant, what do we expect to be in store? Or can you tell us yet?